Hi, this is a video about areas of learning or thinking about the knowledge we have from past experiences. At this point in time, you might be in Module 1 and engaging with areas of knowledge. You might be wondering how to get started and what it is meant when we talk about learning and knowing within the context of this particular program. Let's look about what do we mean when we talk about learning. When we talk about learning, we're talking about gaining or acquiring knowledge of or skill in something by study, experience, or being taught. That we acquire knowledge in different ways doesn't mean that what we acquire is different. So we might be knowing about something, like about dance, through embodied experience and learning through that practice, through the fact that we've been taught about dance or that we read about the theory and practice of dance. This is important because we should not make a differentiation between the ways in which we learn and the knowledge that we learn. So bear that in mind in order to start looking into what do we mean when we talk about knowledge. When we talk about knowledge, we talk about the information, facts, and skills acquired through experience or education, the theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. I would like to point out that the second sentence, the theoretical or practical understanding of a subject, implies a differentiation, a distinction between theory and practice, something that I invite you to question. So we might want to think about theory and practice as entwined, as interrelated, and not something that is separated. This kind of arguing follows the Descartes Cartesian dualism between theory and practice, between the mind and the body, and it's something I wouldn't want you to think in those terms. I would also like you to look into epistemology, that's the theory of knowledge, and I will be putting a link underneath this video for you to look at. So when we talk about knowledge, we talk about propositional knowledge, practical knowledge, tacit knowledge, the skills and know-how. And I'm going to give you an example about the driving of a car. As you see here, we do have a car. You might know how to drive a car, but in that knowing how to, that there is also a tacit knowledge of your body moving inside the car and making movements to make the car run, as well as theoretical knowledge about the science and the rules that are embedded in the practice of driving, whether you can read what the sign means, speed limit or stop, and so on and so forth. So bearing that in mind, we want to think about how to get started. And I invite you to think about it in two ways. You might be wanting to do both. One is to making a list of the things that you have learned. There is no time limit for this. You can go as far back as you deem necessary and as wide as you think is necessary too. So don't just think about one area of your experience. The second one is to looking at your current professional practice and defining what type of skills and knowledge are embedded in your professional practice. You might have a portfolio career. Then you might need to include the different fields within that career, what you've learned in these different fields, or your interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary approach to your practice. So the mapping, this is a mapping exercise and it's a bit vast, but it's important that you sit down and think about what you have learned and make a list out of it. So the second stage, once you've mapped everything in a big list, is to think about the why, the what, and the how. So to critically engage with what you have identified as learning points. For the why, I would like you to start thinking about why did I learn this particular thing? What led me or triggered the learning of? Because sometimes it's through experience. So a particular experience triggers that we go and learn something. In the what, I want you to think about what did you learn? In which context? Because context sometimes is important in order to frame what we learn. And what is its relevance of what you have learned to your professional practice? And then the last point in the how is how did you learn this? And also, how does it manifest in your practice today? So after you've done your list and you have engaged with it critically, The next step is to contextualize and theoretically underpin what you have found. That means to set your areas of learning in relation to the world of knowledge. Of course, in the particular areas you have defined. What if you've defined a particular way, you've identified a particular way of teaching, what has been said about that in the wider world? What is known about that particular area? What is the existing literature, ideas, and approaches to that area of learning? In order to do so, I invite you to go to Google Scholar and start doing a search. It is very important when you start to do that you look for the right terms. So in your search in Google Scholar, try to find which terms will be the most useful for you to find information about the world of knowledge in particular areas. I hope you found this video useful, and I hope to continue the conversation in the comment below. Also, any feedback about this video will be very much welcome in terms of its usefulness and clarity, so that, like you, I keep developing my professional practice.